All right, so our next section is evaluating transit markets. So we're going to start with socioeconomic and land use market summary. All right, so we've actually touched on this already, and kind of gone over some of this and how it works, but certainly there are other elements and options that we didn't touch. So we're going to try to get into all the details of this as we can. All right, so the market analysis summarizes the intensity and distribution of land use and SE data employment and within a geographic context. You can define the geography via selected routes, patterns, segments, stops, or within a mobility area. The primary market analysis summary types are census data, ACS data, employment data. If you have address level data, you can summarize that as well. And the local zonal employment option is not available anymore. The land use data is the parcel level land use data. So we've talked about that. The centroids of the parcel data are the inputs to the land use market analysis. So analysis is limited to the geographic extent of the transit system service area. So it's, I think we've talked about this for our transit systems. We've defined the service extent by county. If you were to perform a market analysis outside of that service extent, the county service extent, it wouldn't show anything because we don't have the data to support it in that transit system. If you needed to have a wider market, then you can update the socioeconomic data to expand by county out to whatever the extents that you need. It mentions future year markets, so user-defined growth, scenario growth rates are applied to market analysis results. So essentially, whenever you're running the market analysis on your TDP constrained plan 2035 and you have a 10-year socioeconomic growth, well, most certainly that growth is going to be inside of your market analysis, right? It's not going to be looking at the base conditions. It's going to be looking at the future year conditions. All right, so let's look at socioeconomic markets. We looked at some of these variables: total population, employment, income, education, Title VI, poverty, household characteristics, auto ownership, age, ethnicity, primary language, and more. So all these are groupings, and then there are specific variables inside of those groups or profiles that you can get to and show the distribution and summarize within the market analysis tool. You can evaluate multiple variables within demographic profiles. So the default is to just show one variable at a time, but there are profiles that you can show in the market analysis that would actually display multiple variables in the summary report. You can compare market coverage totals with the total of the system or the service area totals. So this is pretty handy for providing context, right? So you might have a market area that has 50,000 people, and that's fine. That's the market for it, but you may want to know the percent of the service area that's in your market. So just in looking at this market summary of population enrolled in college, basically what you have is 15,000 here. You may want to know that that's 40% or more of the total enrolled in college for the service area, right? So you have 40% of your service area market. If you're targeting population enrolled in college, maybe 40% of your total service areas within this market. So you're missing out on 60%, right? So that's the kind of context maybe that is important in some of these analysis and something that you can easily add in to your market summary. And of course, any map that you create is exportable to ArcGIS Online or a mobile geodatabase, and we can export to Excel. We also have our handy dandy export to the clipboard, and that will take the map, the summary, and the chart with it. You also have the save report. So that is where you can get a formatted report that you can export to PDF, etc. So if you want to have a more formatted report, you have the save report option where you can go to Excel. I'm sorry, to PDF and other options. Okay. So just in terms of a TDP example, T-Best market summary of population enrolled in college for certainly for Gainesville, very important. And then an example from a TDP is population enrolled in graduate studies. So something very similar you can generate in T-Best that can be pushed out into your TDP as a market summary. All right, so we also have parcel land use markets. So T-Best summarizes parcel land use distributions by general land use type, so residential, commercial, industrial, government, agricultural, and more. And you also have detail, so you can get to single family, multifamily stores, regional shopping centers, office buildings, bars, churches, etc. All of those can play out in your market analysis. So you can see the example on the right here where you have this route market analysis. You have multiple routes selected. It's showing you the markets for all of them. And you can see lots of parcels in this, and they're different colors. And so basically, they're summarized here in the bottom, and they're also in the chart showing their distributions. And the size of the parcel. So these are the centroids of the parcel. In this case, it's based on person trips, right? So here's summarized by person trips. So the size is relative to the number of trips that are being generated out of it. So the smaller, the fewer person trips, the larger, the more person trips, right? So you can get an idea of each parcel generation of IT trip generation rates and how it's playing out in your market. On one note here, obviously, is that land use market analysis is only available if parcel land use data has been developed for your transit system. All Florida users have access to land use data. If you're outside of Florida, then you need to have developed your parcel data in order for it to show up in a market analysis. Okay, so just another example for a TDP where you've generated your land use detail, and then you can probably export this out to a mobile geo database, maybe aggregate it into census blocks or some other land use category or geography, and then show that as part of your future land use, or your land use. Um, and of course, if you have parcel scenarios, it could be future land use because you're developing a future year context for your parcels that would represent something in a future context. All right, so we do have a market analysis wizard. And so I'm going to just kind of step through the wizard on how you set up a market analysis. So the first panel of the wizard is to select your market data to summarize. So that is this area by default. It generally will default to wherever you initiate it from. So if you right click on a route or a selected set of routes and you select socioeconomic market analysis, it will default to socioeconomic data or vice versa, parcel land use data. It will also default to market variable distribution for SE data. You can also set the market data capture options, and this 0.25 miles goes back to our Title VI policy, but we can change it here. You can calculate walk distance from stops or segments if you are selecting at the route level. And then you have this option to clip market zone geometry at the market boundary. So this option, we had this question earlier, does it interpolate the proportion of the intersection of the boundary with the census block or block group? And it does, but it doesn't have to. So if you uncheck this, it will take anything that intersects the boundary would intersect for the market analysis. It would take that whole block or block group in total and use it. Okay, so our second panel is what to analyze. So that is this area. And so generally this too is pre-selected based on where you initialize the market analysis from, but you can always switch it as you go along. Notice that you have mobility here, area here. You can do the entire system, routes, patterns, and stops, etc. So the third panel is compare market totals with service area totals. So I was mentioning this earlier where you have the service, you can compare the market totals with the service area totals. So you would just need to define what the service area is, and by default, it would be, in our case, Alachua County, and this example is in Portland, Oregon. So, and you would just define what you would want there. You don't have to do a service area comparison. You could say no comparison, or you can do it with a mobility area. All right, so once you have set everything up, you run through it, it will generate the market summary. And then, this is the basic setup of it, where have your map summary, data summary, and chart summary. And on the left, you have your controls for exporting, for selecting different variables. There's an option for the system average, which we'll cover, and then feature display options where you can toggle visibility of map features and the chart, etc. So different controls that you might have for it. All right, so here's an example of the market interface. So obviously we kind of looked this a little earlier where we could see that we showed the market variable distribution. If you drop that down, you can get to all of the variables that are available for the market analysis. You have the chart type selection as well, so you can switch to column or pie for market analysis. For the land use, you can filter land use categories, so you can see that I can uncheck different land uses here. So there are 3 land uses that I unchecked in this filter, and that will retabulate at the bottom the total for the market area, right? So as you're unchecking, this gets retabulated. All these get retabulated. Okay, so let's look at some of the options here. So the menu bar and data profile selection, you can save, report, export, and copy to clipboard. The data profile selection, you generally have your summary market variable. So you can select specific variables from the summary markets and the land use markets. So in this case, for land use, you select person trips or area or building square footage or population or dwelling units. And then the feature display options, you can toggle, as I mentioned, the transit network, market visibility chart, labels, the base map visibility, the chart legend, and maps and graphics. All right, so this is a Title VI type of tool that we have in TBEST to very quickly be able to summarize the map, whatever market analysis that we're running, relative to the system average. Now, in this case, we've selected our market variable is Title VI minority population. And if we check this enable summary, in this box for summarize relative to system average or Title VI, it will automatically look at the service area definition and find that it's 32.3% is the system average minority population. So in the map, when we hit apply, it will show us the minority population where the percentage is over the system average and under the system average. So the darker shades here are those that are over the system average, meaning that the percent minority population is greater than 32.33. And the other shade, the lighter shade, is under the system average. So if you think about this from the Title VI perspective, that really the breakdown of a lot of the summaries that you're using for Title VI are relative to the system average, above or below the system average. So this is a very quick screening to see for whatever market that you have, is it above or below the system average for that variable? So it could be that maybe you're doing this for not just Title VI, you can do this for any variable, right? It doesn't have to be limited to Title VI. Whatever you have selected as the summary variable, you can enable this summary. It will calculate the system average for it, and then you can show the distribution above and below the system average. So not necessarily, it's specifically kind of a Title VI type of summary, but you can use it for any variable. All right, so just some different TDP applications for this tool and the different TDP handbook sections where you can find it. So, so I won't go through each one of these, but population access, system minority, percent minority, minority route service summary, land use market summary, TDP reports, and Title VI reports. All of those are supported. These in this TBES supports those sections of the TDP handbook that are listed here through this tool. Likewise, for the COAs, same type of assessment, just a quick look for you on the TBES reporting tool and the planning application that it supports. Okay, so let's run through a socioeconomic land use market summary. Any questions over there? No. Oh. All right. Okay, so let's go to part one. And so I'm on 7.1, Socioeconomic Land Use Market Summary, exercise part one. Create a land use market analysis for crosstown routes. So step one is, if not already open the spring 2025 network scenario. So I will do that. I'll close my TDP constrained. No, I don't want to save it. And I will open my spring 2025. Okay, holding the control key down, select routes 23 and 75. So in my list of routes, I'll select 23 and 75. Right-click on the routes panel and select land use market analysis from the context menu. Right-click land use market analysis. All right, so this is our wizard that we had looked at in the slides. It defaults to land use data. The initial data summary category is person trips for the weekday. It will calculate stop distance, walk distance from the stops at 1/4 of a mile, and we'll clip the market zone geometry. All right. All right, so let's select next, and what to analyze will be selected routes. And now that's the default because we initiated it from the routes panel. All right, let's click next. And then on item 6, on the compare market totals with service area totals, select the option to define the service area by county. So by default, our Alachua County comes in as the service area, which is what we want. So we'll click next and just hit apply. Okay, very good. So when the report is loaded, review the land use person trips by land use group values and distribution in the map. Okay, so by default, we have land use groups as our summary. So residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, and institutional government. And it's summarized by person trips. That was our initial summary category, or summarized by that we wanted. And it's giving the percent of the service area. So what this is saying is that 5.6% of the overall residential person trips in the entire service area, which is all of Alachua County, are located in this area. 81.3% of the commercial person trips are in this area. So clearly, this is a very high commercial area with a lot of trips generated out of it from relative to the full service area. And then industrial, agricultural, institutional, government, et cetera, are also here. All right. So if we want to interrogate this a little bit more, we can switch this to land use detail. So now when we do that, we're still using person trips, and we can see our land use group here, percent of the market, and the percent of the service area. And this one nice thing about this is that it's sortable. So if I want to sort this, I can quickly kind of see drive-in restaurants. There's a lot of them in the area. I actually think the mall is defined as a drive-in restaurant, which is incorrect, but that's how it was defined in the original parcel data. So probably needs to be refined in later iterations of this. And that's one good kind of reality check is that your parcel data, you kind of need to look at it, on a statewide basis. It's a little bit hard to do, but certainly in a local context, you would have some good idea of all of your local land use types and be able to check them individually if needed, especially your major generators. Community shopping centers are another generator. So again, we could actually turn off all the features here and just show community shopping centers so that now we can see where they're located in the map. We can click on them to identify them. The person trip activity from this one is 60,653, and it gives some other information about it. Once you're in the identify, if you want to just select all of this, I can hit Control C and then paste it into Excel if I need to. All right. All right, so let's toggle a few of these things. We can turn off the chart labels. We can turn off the boundary of the market. We can turn off the transit network if we want to. We can make the chart legend visible again, et cetera, right? And we can turn all the features back on if we need to. So if we want to switch this to another variable, instead of person trips, it's building square feet, then our map will change some, our information will change a little bit. We'll turn the legend off. And of course, we can maximize this. We need a little more space. That's fine too. And zooming in and zooming out. And of course, you can click the Save Report. And so what that will do is basically put everything that you have listed in this report, giving you the map that you have currently in the map window, and your pie chart that you have displayed along with everything, and then you can export this to a PDF or to HTML or other format from here. So if we want to switch to a residential land use, this is also very helpful for identifying your multifamily dwelling units. So you have multifamily greater than 10 units. This is your building square footage. So if I switch off all features and I just want to see multifamily, here's another multifamily right here. So multifamily greater than 10 units, multifamily less than 10 units. So this is where your apartments are, and maybe your more transit dependency is. So it's good to identify exactly where those are, how your stops line up with those in the transit network. Okay. I think that's it for the land use side. Let's go to the next and go to, oh, sorry. We were supposed to answer some questions. How many person trips are generated by financial institutions and enclosed theaters? So if we switch to person trips, and we switch to land use, let's see, where are we at? Yeah, so we'll go to commercial. So we have enclosed theaters are, where are you? Drive-in restaurants. Enclosed theaters, those 0 for this. Financial institutions, there are 30,000 person trips, 30,004 person trips. What is percent of the market area is mixed use? All right, so we have mixed use here. If we have, it's basically a 0%. It's such a small number. It's minuscule. So very small number is mixed use. What percent of the service area? That's 2.6%. So basically there's what this is comparing to is to all other parcels in the market area. And this is comparing to all other mixed use in the service area. So this makes up 2.6% of the overall service area mixed use, where this number is a very small number relative to all the other person trips in the market area. So two different types of assessments there. How many square feet of office multi-story land use? Okay, so office multi-story land use is square feet. So we want to switch to square feet. And office multi-story, 270,000 office multi-story. What is the percent of the service area? That is 14.4% of the service area. How many square feet of office multi-story? Okay, we just answered that. What is the population of single family homes? Okay, so let's switch our variable to population and to residential. And single family is 6,087 in our service area, in our market area. Okay, use the export button on the land use market analysis toolbar to export the map to ArcGIS Online. So we'll just click export and map data, ArcGIS Online. And we're going to give this a name of, what is this, residential land use routes 75. So it's routes 70, 23 and 75. Just say okay. All right, just pull this over. And here is my map from TBEST that's now using the parcel data for those distributions in ArcGIS Online. Now, I will say that the one map, the size of these parcels does not translate into ArcGIS Online just because of rendering kind of limitations. But so just note that while it does have all the data, all the data is here, the actual size of the individual parcels relative to the variable like person trips, that doesn't come out. So that's the only limitation that we have. Okay, great. I'm going to close that. And all right, so let's create a socioeconomic market analysis. So without closing this, I am going to just back up in the wizard just by hitting the back button and go to socioeconomic data and just tab through it again, go to next, routes, all the same parameters and hit apply, yes. All right, so let's just answer some similar questions. How many commercial employees are there? So, so we switch our market variable to employees, employment commercial. There are 4,621 in the market area. How many workers in total? So in total, there are 15,393. What is the area's Title VI minority population? So if we switch our variable to Title VI minority population, there are 9,778. What is the percent of the market area uses Spanish as their primary language? So if we switch to primary language Spanish, that is 2.1% of the market area population uh, uses Spanish as their primary language. What is the average income of the area? So if we switch to our average income variables or income variables, aggregate income, average income. So 87,859. How many people are enrolled in college? Enrolled in college education, 2,150. Enrolled in K through 12 is education K through 12, 3,015. And then how many zero car households? So if we go to households or sorry, vehicles, auto ownership, zero car, um, didn't come up with any. So basically zero. Okay. So uh, let's switch to Title VI, minority population. And we're going to enable our system, summarize relative to the system average. So we're going to check this. It calculates the system average of 31.6% for the service area. So we want to see what areas in our market are above 31.6. So that is this darker shade, and the lighter shade is 31 point below 31.6. So it's just a very easy way to show what's above and below the system average. Now we could change this. So if we wanted to say the system average isn't 31%, it's 40%, then we could apply it and then it would change our map. So we have the ability to switch this to whatever number we want. It doesn't even have to be the system average. It could just be over 60% if we want it. We could show those areas that are above 60%. Okay, so kind of a nice tool to have to evaluate relative to any variable. It doesn't have to be minority population. It could be education, K through 12, doesn't matter. It could be any of these. Okay, so when we're done, we're going to close and close this. And I think that's it for this section. The answers to all of those questions were in here as well. So yes, we have that as well. So I think what we'll do is before we begin the next section, we can just break for lunch. And when we come back, we will finish out the remaining sections. And then, uh, we also have an evaluation that everyone can fill out. We'll send it to everyone after the training and the workshop. And then, just fill it out at your leisure and send it back to us. It's just an online form. So yeah, so we'll see you back at so it's 11:38, so 12:40. We'll come back and begin again. Sam and I will hang out for a few minutes here. If anyone has any follow-up questions or needs some support, we'll be glad to help you out. And other than that, we'll see you back here at 12:40. Okay, a couple of questions coming in. Um, so the first one is, I think yesterday it was discussed that the ridership estimation is a direct demand modeling technique and also how we could change the parameter estimates. Can we get any information of what kind of function it is, like regression or something? Yes, it is a regression equation. And so it does mix variables. There are exponential variables in the equation. And it was estimated about 10 years ago. So it probably, it's a little bit dated in terms of its estimation, but yes, it is a regression equation using multiple variables. Um, so just in terms of that question, I'm just going to close out of this and go to ridership estimation models and the T-best land use model. So we didn't look at this. We looked at the land use trip rates, but we didn't really look at the model parameters or coefficients, and you all can open these up locally as well. But in terms of the parameters, you can kind of see some of what's going into the computations of it here in terms of distance decay. So here's distance decay by mode and capacity of default capacity constraint. It actually looks at each individual route and their capacities in terms of the bus. The market area definitions, the network build. So this is your composite impedance or travel time. At 100 minutes, and transfers walk distance, uses walk market options of Euclidean buffer. Now, this is interesting that you can actually switch this to walk shed. So it would, instead of using just a regular buffer, it would use the walk shed as generated from OpenStreetMap around every stop. So you could actually switch that and run it and see what the differences are. Just would have to switch it and switch it back and see how T-best estimates differently using a Euclidean buffer versus a walk market of walk shed. So those are some of the parameters, but the other item here is the equation coefficients. So you have a direct boarding model, and you can see the constant. And whenever we're showing these, the constant for the each time period for direct boarding. So here's the constant for each time period. So I mentioned yesterday there is actually 12 models that runs, 6 for each time period for direct boarding and 6 for transfer boardings. So here's the constant for directs for each time period. And then you can get to the employment coefficients to see what's sensitive, households, income, network accessibility, population, route types, service characteristics. So there's a log variable here, log of arrivals. Special generators. So if it has a coefficient, it's a dummy variable that's sensitive in technology. So you can pretty easily peruse all these and see what's sensitive. And of course, we also have in the tools, we have the GitHub repository. So if you open this up, you actually have all the ridership estimation model source code. So you can download this. It's in C#. We give you instructions on how to download it and use it. So just so you know, it's all there for you to investigate, right? Hopefully that helps me. Okay, next question is, are there any tools in T-best to run propensity analysis? This is very similar to what you were demonstrating, but aggregates many SE variables to build an over score to describe latent demand. I think that would be kind of an off T-best type of analysis. We don't do anything like that just because we don't have a discrete methodology that would be, aggregating several together and then, developing a map or a summary or analysis using that. But certainly that's something that's very possible. And I'd like to see something like that because I think that's something that could go directly into a TDP or any kind of operations analysis to say, where is the propensity here for us to even investigate and look at routes? and describe what you're saying, latent demand, where is it? So yeah, I think that's something where we could probably add something in at some point that would take a look at that. Okay, another question. I have a question about ridership data. How does the model react if we feed it in the average ridership for weekday, Saturday, and Sunday AM peak? The average ridership only goes in at weekday, Saturday, and Sunday. It does not go in at the peak periods. So that is the limit that we have. I think generally that's because in most cases, people don't exactly have that level of detail. I mean, maybe they do at this point, but when we developed this 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't that level of detail coming out of, route level assessments. So in terms of the validation, I think it's still a good fitting mechanism because it does fit at the weekday level. But yeah, I see what you're saying, that it would do even better if you had specific adjustment factors for the peak periods and off-peak periods. But at this point, it's just at weekday, Saturday, Sunday.